Okay, hello, Christopher. How excited are you for July 21st to the 23rd when the Mirror Mountain Film Festival is going down?
Of course, I'm always excited. It's going to be our first in-person festival since 2019. We did do an online-only virtual festival in 2021, which was lovely in its own way.
Mhm.
But it's an entirely different thing to be like in a real theater, with real popcorn and to be able to welcome our community back. So yeah, we're very excited.
That is a big deal. And yes, I agree. Virtual film festivals were their own thing, but they're not the same. And while they're their own thing, and I love them, they're not quite as good. And it'll be great to see people's faces, and, get their reactions to everything that's happening live, right?
Yeah, there's a real sense of immediacy and community in doing an in-person event. It's not just about seeing the films and just like absorbing content, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
There's more of a neighborhood feeling to the whole thing. Being able to just talk to people live after the screening and say, "Oh, well, what did you think?" or "How
right.
did this make you feel?" is yeah, fantastic experience.
I had a good moment. I watched Bo is Afraid of the Bytown, and my friend said, "What did you think about that?" And I said, "I thought it sucked." And yes, so I
Yeah,
think half the
this
people
is like
agreed.
going to. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like half the people agreed with me, and then half the people thought I was wrong. But you
Yeah.
throw it out there. You mix it up, and it's enjoyable.
Yeah. I love going for coffee or for a meal or something after going to the movies with a friend. And at the festival, it's like doing that like 15 times in a row. So it's wonderful.
Exactly. That's the good. I like that. Like a good analogy. All right, so we're gonna break down these individual components for people, even though we're talking about how like it's a different kind of experience, but still, people will after if they watch this interview, they will know what's going down. So tell me about the visual art and music performance on the 21st.
Oh yeah, sure. So we're starting off the festival with our live performance this year. It's going to be sort of our kickoff for the whole thing. And we've got a local electronic musician, which is a first for us, actually. We've had rock bands before. We've had like, folk musicians. We've had sort of like Portishead style, like,
Mm.
kind of post-rock musicians before, but this is the first time we've ever had someone that like is more towards the kind of like EDM side of the musical spectrum. So that's exciting and new. Named Jakeen, and he's going to be performing a live set with a backdrop of visuals that are created in real time by a local VJ and video artist named Annie Sokaria. And that's going to be really interesting because Jakeen and his set is very like modern and very high tech. You can check out his performances on Twitch. He does live streams all the time.
Nice.
And he's someone that is very much on the pulse of like current technology. But Annie Sokaria does a set where she creates visuals by filming the artists on the stage using antique analog vintage video cameras and then producing feedback loops through that. So she's going to have these old, 1990s and 1980s cameras pointed at Jakeen, and she's going to be creating live visual effects by, generating video signals and feedback loops from those. So it's going to be really like a meeting of old and new technology. And of course, lots of light and color and loud sound and just, a lot of energy on stage. So it's going to be wonderful.
And if you're there, you get to see something spontaneous and art just like unfolding right before your eyes, which is pretty remarkable.
Absolutely, yeah. The whole deal with Annie Sokoria's, video art is that it's all like live and generative in the moment. Like there's no pre-recorded aspects. It's all just like produced out of that unique moment.
All right. Well, in your local hero section, I went through the filmmakers' names, and I definitely recognize some of the people there. What kind of vibes can we expect from these shorts?
Well, we love our local filmmakers here at Mirror Mountain. We program every year, local heroes, and it's our showcase of just films from the Ottawa Gatineau region, from directors that are from our own backyard, as we like to say. We also have a lot of local programming throughout the rest of the festival, but this is the moment where local talent really gets to shine. And this year's selection is a lot more heavily experimental than it usually is. Usually, in Local Heroes, it's more, kind of comedy and drama and documentary and narrative stuff. And we have a bit of that in this program too, but there's a lot more on the kind of weird and avant-garde side in Local Heroes this year, just because I guess this particular year was really good for local experimental work and local experimental practice. So, we've got some really cool stuff. Penny McCann, who I know has a brand new piece that's going to have its world premiere at this screening. Never been screened in public before, so that's really exciting. She shot it on 16 millimeter film with all sorts of really neat like solarization effects, which she can tell the audience about how she achieved live in the Q&A, I'm sure. We've also got a really interesting piece by a local artist who's also a musician named Nadia Pacey, which is inspired by the famous film La Jetée by Chris Marker, told in a kind of a science fiction style, but with still images. So definitely going out into the weird stylistic realms this year for local work. So that's really fun. We've also got a few really interesting dance pieces. There's one that was made by a local person with disabilities who is also a disability activist and dancer named Jessie Huggett. It's called Dance in the Making, and it's a really, really unique short film where she is dancing on a stage with different friends of hers who are also professional dancers in the Ottawa dance community. And they're dancing about their relationships with each other while also talking about their relationships with each other. So it's sort of like seeing like relationships and conversations translated into modern dance as it's happening live on a stage. Really unique. Never seen anything like it before.
Ooh, very interesting. Lots to chew on there. And it sounds like the vibes are wide ranging.
Oh yes, absolutely. And for folks that do just like, a good story with characters, scripted narrative, there's plenty of that too. We have a great piece that's opening the program called Potbound by an artist we featured before, Hingman Lung, and it's just a really well told, well acted relationship comedy drama about two people dividing up their belongings after a breakup. So we've got plenty of stuff like that too I think for everyone.
Oh, that's a good balance, right?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming the moving images selection is a little bit trippier than Local Heroes. So tell me a bit about that.
Well, it's funny, like I think everything is a little bit trippy this year, which is what we like, that's the good stuff.
Oh yes.
Yeah, we've got some great stuff in that program too. A good balance again of drama with some other types of films. There's some spoken word pieces in there, kind of not quite poetry, but where someone is not exactly playing a character, but they're speaking in a way that is sort of poetic about life and the world and their perceptions of it. We got a couple of pieces like that. There's a couple of really very kinetic and very aesthetically satisfying dance pieces in that program, and just some top rate drama from across Canada as well, including some really nice pieces from the East Coast. So that's going to be a really very, I think, emotionally stirring as well as intellectually stimulating program.
Ooh, all right. And you have a documentary section, true stories,
Yes.
and that's a fact. That's the true story in itself. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely. A lot of our programs that the titles of them come from a reference to something or somewhere. And here's a little trivia for you. The name of our documentary program, True Stories, was inspired directly by one of my favorite films, the film True Stories, which was directed by David Byrne from the Talking Heads.
Oh,
Because I'm
nice.
a huge Talking Heads fan. So if you've
Oh,
ever,
that's
if
not
you
a
and your
shocker.
your listeners have ever seen or haven't seen yet Talking Heads, the movie True Stories, it's wonderful. It's a
Oh, cool.
great musical comedy film. Love it. But anyway, getting back to the point,
Yeah.
yes, our documentary program True Stories is on Saturday at 3 p.m. and we've got a really wonderful mixture of work in there too, including like a lot of different formal styles. There's a really beautiful film about a father and his autistic son learning to communicate and learning to have a relationship, and it's told in like super austere, crisp black and white cinematography,
Ooh.
like just like sharp as a knife, just like you know um really just like classic documentary. But also in the same program, we have, a documentary from Croatia, which is animated,
Okay.
where they take a real person's testimony of their life that they recorded the audio for, and they animate their life story instead. So a lot of fun variety there in how, a true story is told. We don't just do the standard conventional style of documentary each and every time. We like to kind of try and expand people's idea of what a documentary can be. So that's a really fun aspect of this program too.
Oh yeah, documentary is it can be such a different experience, from not just topic to topic, but from approaches for sure.
Yeah.
And you've got a feature, so tell me about that.
Oh yeah. So we have a feature, and I'm going to butcher the French pronunciation of it. So
Oh
I'm sorry
no,
to all of your French and
welcome to
French
my world.
listeners. Il y a une étoile, or there is a star in English. We're going to be presenting I believe, the Ontario premiere, and
Nice,
I gotta be honest with you. I think it's probably one of the best, if not the best, feature-length films we've ever screened at the festival.
nice.
It is just a knockout. Everyone in the theater is going to need to bring, a box of Kleenex, because it's just going to be tears from beginning to end, but in a good way. It is a moving and joyous and uplifting documentary about transgender youth in Acadia, in the Canadian East Coast, learning to find a community, learning to discover themselves, learning to express themselves through song. And it is actually a full-on musical. Like, and I don't just mean that like it's a documentary where somebody picks up a guitar once in a while and strums a few chords. No, I mean like it's a documentary. It's real life. And there are plenty of great interviews and all sorts of things like that in it. But also there are full-on La La Land, West Side Story style choreographed
Wow.
musical numbers with dancing and confetti flying through the air, and it just hundreds of extras, and it's an amazing visual spectacle on the screen. How an independent filmmaker has ever been able to pull this off, I have no idea, because it's a magic trick happening right in front of you. But luckily, the director Julien Cadieux is actually going to be there, and he is going to be in attendance to answer my questions about like, how the heck did you do this? This is
Yeah.
incredible. Um, and as well, of course, as answering questions from our lovely audience who are going to be there live. But yeah, it's a stunning piece of work. Just absolutely lifts everybody up in terms of the emotional resonance of the stories being told, about identity and belonging and community, but also just providing like a wonderful piece of cinema and cinema magic on screen.
Nice. And fully ourselves. That is a I saw is I'm used to saying LGBTQ plus, but there was another term for it. What is it? 2S, two something?
Yeah, Two Spirit, we've
Two
included
spirit.
there as
Okay,
well.
okay, okay.
Yeah, we have a couple of pieces by Indigenous filmmakers who identify as Two Spirit in that program. So we added the 2S in front of the LGBTQ to show that we're including them as well in this program. So this is something that actually we've never done before, but we are going to start doing more regularly in each edition of the festival, is retrospective programming, because we have shown so
Yeah.
many great films over the years since we started in 2015. Literally, I think we're up to something like almost 600 short films at this point that we've
Wow.
programmed all together. Like
It's
there's a lot.
remarkable.
Um, yeah, absolutely. And like some of the ones, from like 2015 or 16 or 17, like they're so good, I don't want people to forget about them.
Yeah.
They deserve to have a second go around, a second screening, and a moment in the spotlight again. So we're going to start doing these retrospective programs where we work with a local organization, a community focused group in Ottawa, and let them curate the screening. So this screening, Fully Ourselves, was curated by Kindspace, which is a local community center and drop-in center and workshop center for LGBTQ and at-risk youth. And we just showed them, here's every film that we have ever screened before in the past. I think there was something like 50 of them by LGBTQ persons, by directors belonging to that community. And which ones do you like? Which ones do you want to see on the big screen? And we let them pick out the ones that they like. And they ended up choosing the title and the theme of the program as well. So it was a really interesting way of getting someone else to have a new perspective on our existing programming, putting the program together in a way that we may not have thought of doing otherwise. So it's going to be stuff that we've screened before, but a lot of stuff that we haven't screened in a really long time. And certainly, it's a great opportunity to see it on the big screen, and some of the filmmakers are going to be there in attendance too. So we think it's going to be a really fun way for the community to gather and to, kind of show support and just kind of celebrate representation. So expect more programs like that in the future, kind of representing different communities or different sectors in, successive editions of the festival, because the response to it so far has been tremendous.
Sweet. So Strange Hours is the weirdo shorts. Is there stuff here that is particularly, dare I say, Lynchian in your mind?
Oh yeah,
Uh,
absolutely, yeah. I mean, like, they're all weird, what we like. We are a band of kooky outsiders by definition. So even our documentary program gets weird. Yeah, Strange Hours is where things really turn for the surreal. And we've got some amazing work in that program this year. There is a piece that I think you would probably like a lot called Canal. And you can check out a trailer on our social media pages right now. It's been uploaded recently. But not only does it remind me a lot of Eraserhead, the first David Lynch film, filmed in black and white, but also very strong Guy Madden vibes, like Tales from the Gimli Hospital era, Archangel era, early Guy Madden stuff, where, it's like sets that are kind of constructed out of like plywood and frosted glass, and people, with strange white pancake makeup are kind of doing the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari thing, kind of going through these constructed realities in this like really surreal trip of full sound design in it too. And there's other stuff in that program that I would love to talk about, but I don't want to spoil it, because sometimes the shock of seeing it, for the first time is half the fun. I don't want to give too much away, but I can say that we actually have 3 of the directors from that program that are going to be in attendance at the screening, 2 of whom have come from the United States, and 1 who is traveling all the way from France just to be with us at the festival. So there's going to be a great international showing of filmmakers there. So don't miss it. It's gonna be wild.
Fun. And you have a documentary double bill. What's that like?
Yeah, double bill is something that we try and program as often as we can, because there often isn't a home for medium length work, and we hear this a lot from filmmakers. There are a lot of film festivals out there that cater exclusively to shorts. And usually the maximum length of anything that they screen is like, let's say 15 minutes, 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes. And there's a lot of film festivals out there that exclusively cater to feature films, where everything has to be a minimum of 75 minutes or 70 minutes to even get screened. So what happens to all of the films out there that are between 30 and 60 minutes? they just don't have anywhere to go, right? So we came up with the idea of hosting a program called Double Bill, where we would play 2 medium-length films in the festival each year, something in the range of, a 30 to 40-minute piece. And yeah, the response from filmmakers has been great, because a lot of them just, I've been looking for any kind of a place to screen work on that length
Yeah.
and format, other than maybe like TV or something. To put it, as a 1 hour broadcast with commercials or something like that. And that's a bit of a long shot for some folks. So it is a great showcase for work that is kind of in an unusual length and format. But in this case, we've actually lucked into somehow screening 2 local films in that particular category, which has never happened before. We happen to get 2 locally made documentaries that are both medium length, and are both of outstanding quality. There's one called Portrait of a Songwriter. And if you're familiar with the Richard Linklater film Boyhood, which was filmed over
Yeah.
the course of like 10 years or something, or 12 years,
Yeah.
this is like that, actually.
Oh
This
wow.
is a documentary about a local musician named Lou Albert, who was struggling with alcoholism and with various different types of personal demons. And the film is shot over the course of literally 10 years, from 2010 to 2020, chronicling the different changes in his life and his ability to kind of come to terms with his personal demons and the overcoming of that alcoholism. And it's a real life Boyhood, basically, that happens right in front of your eyes. So, and it's local too. Both the artist and the filmmaker are from Ottawa. So it's a really, really unique type of documentary that you don't see very often. And I'm proud to say that we actually get to play the world premiere of that one too. So it's never been screened before. No one's seen it. So you could be the first if you come on down to our Sunday matinee screening of Double Bill. The other piece that's in that program is called The Vagina Slides.
Oh my
And that is
goodness.
also a very fascinating work.
Uh-huh.
So by a local director, although it was shot in Montreal. She is from here, Amanda Fetter. And that is a really interesting film that is about it's a documentary also. And it's the true story of a college course that happened in the 70s on human sexuality, where, and this was like when gender studies was like not really a thing in Canadian universities, where like human sexuality courses were like just emerging and were very kind of experimental.
Yeah.
And basically they would show the students pornography, not
God,
just slides but also movies, very explicit, full frontal genitalia on the screen.
my
And then they
goodness.
would just say, well, let's talk about it now. And it sounds like it would just be like something that would just have shock value. But
Right.
what's interesting about the film is that it ended up impacting the students who took these classes in a really profound way. And what you find out over the course of the film, they interview 3 different people that took this class back in the 70s, I believe at Concordia, and all of them, without fail, are now teachers in human sexuality and gender studies. And
Oh
it's
wow.
really informed them as people, as adults that they've grown into, and their outlook on the world and their politics. And it was like a really formative experience for them. So it's really interesting just to see how, this kind of experimental style of teaching and learning actually ended up influencing how courses and university education is actually taught today. So there's a real interesting real life impact there.
Interesting. Well, we'll have to see how they connect the dots between not being shock value and the life changes you're talking about. Definitely had to check that, see it to believe it, I guess. So tell me
Well, there
what
is some
kind of
shock
animated.
value too.
Pardon?
Oh, there is some shock value too, though.
Oh, yeah. Okay. 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 Uh, right.
There's both.
Uh, so what kind of animated shorts do we get in lines drawn? The lines drawn section.
Yeah, so that's happening on Sunday afternoon, and that is, a showcase of stuff that, surprisingly, you might think that most of it, if not all of it, has already screened in Ottawa at the Ottawa International Animation Festival. But
Yeah.
actually, surprisingly, that's not the case. We are showcasing almost exclusively nothing but premieres at this program, whether it's an Ottawa premiere, an Ontario premiere, or even a Canadian premiere. So I don't want to say, anything to suggest that like, oh, the OIAF missed the boat on,
Right.
programming these wonderful films or anything. Not at all. I have nothing but love and fond memories of every experience I've ever had at the Animation Festival. I think
Oh
it's
yeah, they're great.
fantastic. Yeah, amazing, amazing. An institution here in Ottawa for a good
Absolutely.
reason. For a good reason. But I think maybe it's just the case that this particular group of filmmakers that we're screening this year, they kind of maybe wanted to submit their work to us, because perhaps there is more of that experimental or avant-garde kind of spirit in Mirror Mountain. There is a bit more of that willingness to play with what animation even is. Very much like we do in our documentary program. It's not just about true stories, it's about how you can tell a documentary. And the same goes for our animation program. We have a piece, for example, in this animation program, Lines Drawn, called Rot, and not spelled R-O-T, but spelled with a W, W-R-O-U-G-H-T.
Oh, okay, yeah.
um, like as in I was wrought with anguish, that kind of
Right,
thing.
right, right.
But it is an animated film, and we can maybe put animated in quotation marks, that was made by allowing fruits and vegetables and even animals to just decompose.
Oh
So
no.
it's animation through, natural organic decomposition process. And it looks on screen, it sounds disgusting, but it looks on screen like the most beautiful Jackson Pollock painting you've ever seen in your life. Literally being painted live in real life, like the strands and the colors and the shapes and circles and different kind of textures just come to life and just build themselves, almost by magic. And it's because it's time-lapse photography of a carrot or a red cabbage, or a pineapple decomposing. And it's been kind of produced with a kind of a hybrid of, I guess you could say, animation, but also science and
Hmm.
biology. A fascinating piece of work. So I guess that's an example of the kind of thing that, you can only see at Mirror Mountain, where it's really pushing the boundaries of what animation could potentially even be called. Can you even label this an animated film? It's not a cartoon, but it is taking something inanimate and bringing it to life on screen.
I believe it, and I wouldn't expect anything else from your kind of mandated philosophy. So, will minds be bent and blown after experiencing the new vision section?
Absolutely, yeah. That is, our grand finale for the festival. Our last program of the weekend is, something that's very near and dear to me. It's our experimental program. Now, there's a few pieces that I've mentioned already that kind of border on experimental cinema, or, kind of reference that language and that history. But this is the program where it's, the really hardcore experimental stuff. So, this is where it's going to get very, very innovative with the art of filmmaking. It's going to be straying farthest away from just like narrative storytelling and most into kind of very visual and auditory forms of avant-garde expression. So there's pieces here that are made with combining different types of like slide projectors on top of one another. There are pieces where there are soundscapes that are made out of layering many different layers of wind noise. There's a piece, in actually a local piece in this program, where through macro photography, the filmmaker uses ordinary pieces of cardboard packaging like you would get when you buy a piece of furniture at IKEA, the stuff, the junk that you usually throw away, and zooms into them in order to explore what look like entire universes inside of these pieces of styrofoam and cardboard packaging. So yeah, it's going to be a mind-blowing selection for sure.
Right. And going on all weekend is the interactive media cave. What the heck is that going to be like?
Yeah, so we've started in the last two editions to start including interactive media in each edition of the festival. This is going to be the third time that we've done it. And this is a film called Caves, and it was made by a Spanish filmmaker. And it's a 360-degree video, which means that it is recorded in a spherical format. And people who witness or experience this film at our festival will be able to use a control device, like an iPad, for example, to actually move the perspective of the camera themselves and be able to explore in 360-degree space, up, down, left, right, and everywhere themselves. You know, this is a film about a trio of real life cave explorers, you know, people going splunking in some of what, at least to my eyes, look like the most extreme physical conditions I've ever seen. Like I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, The Descent, the
Yeah,
Neil Marshall movie.
yeah.
Well, that, but without the monsters.
Okay.
There
Good
are moments
grief.
in this film where we see like our trio of cave explorers, you know, going through a passage where there's like rocks going up to their face and there's water going up to this side of their face, and they have to just travel through, you know, a
Oh,
passage that thin for what feels like, you know, 10 minutes. And you know their life is on the line basically, but this is, you know, their job and their profession and what they do, and it provides an amazing insight into what someone who does this for a living actually goes through.
mhm.
We learn a lot. It's, you know, it's informative, it's a documentary to an extent, but it's also very much just experiential. You get to kind of explore the virtual space just in the same way that these people are exploring physical space. So we have a separate dedicated room, an interactive media space that we're going to have set up in the festival, where we are actually going to make it into a cave. It is going to be lit and decorated and dressed as if it was an actual cave, and you'll be able to go into the cave to experience caves.
That's
So it's
fun.
gonna, yeah, the sound design is amazing in it too. Just the way in which the surround sound has been
Mhm.
orchestrated in this film is really quite lovely. So yeah, a unique, very visceral, immersive experience, and a very different way to engage with cinema too.
All right. Well, Christopher, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Is there a final thought you would like to end this interview with?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, our festival's open for everyone, you know. It doesn't matter what you are, who you are, what you look like, how old you are. We've got something for everybody here. We, you know, deliberately try and open it up to every genre and every type of film, because, you know, everyone has their own special favorite thing. And we have opportunities for everyone to be able to experience something that connects with them on, you know, a spiritual and emotional and intellectual level. And a visceral level too. And with that in mind, also, you know, we don't want to turn anyone away. So we are offering all of our ticket admission at the festival this year on a pay what you can basis. The
Nice.
suggested admission price is $10 for each show, but you can pay whatever you like. If you can't pay anything at all, that's okay too. We're never going to turn anybody away. Everyone is welcome.
That's very kind of you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time.
All right. Well, thanks for having me.
My pleasure.